Back here in the Next Panel podcast, Graham Gius and Matthews, joined by two gentlemen we've had here on the show before, breaking down She-Hulk here today. Not just the season finale, but the entire show. And I'm looking forward to kind of getting your guys' thoughts on as far as whether you liked it, hated it, somewhere in the middle. And like you mentioned a second ago before we hit the record button, but that polarizing ending about a week or so ago when it dropped. And it's interesting. There's been a lot of thoughts in the show, and I feel like I might fall in the minority that actually really enjoyed this show, but I want to find out if I'm not alone in feeling that way. But Rick, you're back, my man. Welcome back to the show, and thanks for joining us here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, man. Anytime that I get an opportunity to talk about anything other than professional wrestling, I will just jump at that because I don't get those opportunities very often. And yeah, this is one of those shows that has just been it's been very polarizing, particularly the season finale. Fans seem to either love or hate it, and I'm excited here to go to bat. I think for both sides. I tend to be one of the few people that finds myself in the middle on this series. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, most definitely. And Bill, you're back as well. I don't remember the last thing that we had you on for. Was it Suicide Squad, or what did we break down with you last year when you were here?
I think,
was it What If or something?
Yeah, it was something. I want to say Suicide Squad.
I think it was Suicide Squad. Yeah,
or maybe
either
Peacemaker.
Way, oh, maybe it was Peacemaker. Yeah, it might have been one of the two. Yeah, it was a while
something
ago. But either
DC.
Way. Yeah, something DC related. Obviously, we're switching it up here today. Oh, Black Adam's coming out the week that we're talking right now, obviously. I don't know if this is going to be up before then, but Black Adam's out on Friday, which I'm looking forward to. But
wait,
yeah,
Black Adam's coming out? I had no idea.
Really?
I hadn't seen The Rock on literally every TV channel for the last 4 weeks.
Giving away the mid-credit scene.
Yeah,
I had no idea that Black Adam was coming out. You know what that tells me? That tells me that this movie sucks, and they're trying to get the biggest opening weekend they can, because once the word is out, no one's going to go see it after.
Oh, you just told The Rock his movie sucks.
I didn't tell him anything. I'm sure he's fantastic.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, I kind of heard the same thing, but I know reviews are out now because, it's Wednesday, and most people have seen it by now, as far as like they had the premiere last week. I don't want to read too much into it because I don't want to find out how good or bad it is ahead of time. I'd rather just find out myself and then kind of form an opinion from there, because I feel like I kind of follow the majority opinion, whatever it is, with a lot of these shows, which is why I was worried about this finale for She-Hulk, because I saw a lot of negative tweets about it on my timeline after really liking the show. And I thought for the most part, it was something different, and I liked it. But let's start from the beginning here. Rick, you talked about She-Hulk a little bit as far as you kind of fell somewhere in the middle. This was a very, very different show than all the other shows we've gotten so far from Marvel, which is a lot. Everything from Miss Marvel to Falcon and the Winter Soldier to WandaVision. All of these shows have been very good in their own right, very different, some obviously stronger than others. This had a different vibe with it, kind of the Deadpool thing, breaking the fourth wall, different characters, a lot of cameos early on, 9 episodes too, compared to 6. Just kind of give me your general thoughts with the show, and how you kind of, now that it's over and done with, how you felt about it.
Yeah, so I think that putting out this kind of a show is very smart ahead of Deadpool's introduction into the MCU, because we're going to get a very similar kind of vibe, I would imagine, with Deadpool. I mean, why, if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? So, I mean, Deadpool is great on his own. They're going to continue to do, rated R movies with him. So kind of actually stepping out and bringing in a fourth wall breaking character like She-Hulk makes a ton of sense to me. And I think it was a nice introduction to that kind of angle that we're going to get, with Deadpool. And I guarantee you some people who hate the fourth wall breaking are going to look the other way or enjoy it when Deadpool comes out, which is part of the theme of this show, right? It's all the undertone messages about what women, and in particular women superheroes, have to kind of go through, and all the BS. And I loved that opening line in the first line where it's like, of course I can handle my anger better than you, because I'm literally hangry all the fucking time. So there were definitely parts of this show that I really enjoyed throughout. And I think, looking over it as a whole, like each individual episode I enjoyed. I just think collectively as a series, it didn't quite come together for me, especially with the way that the ending the way that the ending happened when they completely not broke the fourth wall, they ripped that damn thing down, where she's literally punching her way out of the damn Disney Plus screen to go hunt down Kevin Feige and have him fix the fucking ending of the show, right? Like, And then they get back to it, and it's just like, oh, hey, nothing really mattered. Everything's resolved. We're cool. Hey, can we bring in Matt Murdock one more time to get the cheap audience pop? And that was kind of the end of the series. Oh, wait, and here's Hulk's son. And it's like, what the fuck just happened? So I think individually, I liked each episode. I just don't know if they came together to form a coherent 9-episode story. It just seemed like I kind of like if I look at it like I'm watching The Simpsons, where nothing really matters in the long run. Just, hey, here's all these really cool characters, and hey, here's a cameo, and you get a cameo, and you get a cameo. There's a lot to enjoy. I just don't know if it all came together.
Yeah, do you think it lacked from having that one singular direction? Because I know obviously they follow the theme of like, she struggles with being Jen and then She-Hulk, whatever. She's trying to establish her identity and deal with these powers and whatever. But yeah, I mean, at the end, when they completely blew up that finale with like, all right, Todd's not going to be Hulk, and let's get rid of that, blah, 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 with the blood. And, that wasn't the main focus of this show. But I mean, it wasn't completely random either. I mean, there was a central theme throughout the 9 episodes of, the intelligentsia stuff. And then Todd, I mean, obviously he ended up being the big bad in a different way, but it wasn't like as if that came out of nowhere. So I thought to completely get rid of that was an interesting decision. But do you think the show suffered from not having that one overarching goal, like that solid direction that a lot of these shows have, and just beating the bad guy? I mean, obviously they kind of talked about that in the finale and saying that we're not doing that with this show, which is fine, but it may have worked against it in a certain way as well.
Yeah, I think where it really suffered is, your good guy is only as good as the bad guy they're fighting. And it never really seemed to know who was that big. You just said Todd was the big bad. I'm like, oh my God, was he really? Like, is that like Todd was the freaking big bad at the end of all of this? I'm like, I guess he is. Yeah. But I mean, if I look at it, I guess the overall big bad is just men in general and the treatment toward women. At least that's what I'm taking away from it. And again, I have no problem with that. And I just feel like this whole show, instead of standing out on its own, was just like a massive setup for everything else. Hey, here's what's coming up next with Wong and and Emil, right? Like, hey, Abomination is back in the MCU, which is one of the big things that I loved about this, is it finally kind of gave the Hulk a platform to kind of get caught up on what we've missed in the Hulk storyline from 2008. Like, we never, outside of General Ross showing up in the Avengers movies, we have no idea what happened to the leader, right? We haven't heard from Betsy. We haven't seen Liv. We haven't even sniffed Liv Tyler in 2 decades now, almost, as far as the MCU is concerned. Completely different actor, right? We get all that, but Abomination didn't see from him until he showed up in Shang-Chi. So it was nice to kind of revisit some of those storylines and get back into that. I just feel like there was something overall missing from this show to make it stand out as its own thing. It just felt like a vessel for kind of tying together maybe some loose ends or setting things up for other shows than just being its own thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, between Hulk's son and then obviously Matt Murdock and the introduction of, Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock in the MCU, and, Daredevil is getting his own show and whatever. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And no, it's interesting as far as how the show is formatted and stuff like that. You mentioned the leader. Like, I thought it was weird during the course of this show airing. They announced the leader is going to be in that new Captain America movie whenever it comes out in a few years, Captain America 4, New World Order. I don't know if that name's going to stick or not, but he's going to be in that movie. And I thought it was weird they would announce him for that movie after fucking 15 years of being away, like you said. And then I'm thinking, well, surely if he's being announced for that cast, then he'll be in this. Kind of like with Kang. They announced Jonathan Majors as Kang for Ant-Man 3, I don't know, a year or two ago. And then he showed up in the Loki finale. And I'm thinking, okay, that makes sense. So I'm thinking the leader might show up at the end of this. That might have played into what I was saying a minute ago, though, as far as it just feeling shoehorned in there, random, wasn't seen at all until the last episode. Maybe he's a post-credit scene. We didn't see him at all. There wasn't a reference to it. He wasn't behind Intelligentsia, which I know he had ties to in the comics. So I thought that was a little disappointing, but they never advertised him.
Yeah, if they would have just had him show up at the end and him be the guy who was in, running the whole gambit with Intelligentsia, that would have been great for me, right? Instead of it just being douchebag Todd. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
where we're
listen,
going with this.
I get it. No, I thought the show was great. I didn't mind all, like, there was a lot of controversy at the end with the ending and how they formatted it. And I'm going to throw this to Bill to you in a second. But as far as like, especially early on when that first episode, like you mentioned, Rick, when she mentioned, like, I deal with this sort of stuff all the time and controlling my anger. And, there was a lot of people call it a man-hating show and all this other sort of silly shit. I didn't mind that sort of stuff at all. I thought it was a very refreshing take on a lot of the stuff we don't get much in the MCU, especially with female superheroes. Not that we don't have any, but just the perspective they put on, I thought was cool. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think that was kind of the main focus of this show, is having Todd be the main, I say big bad, but like the main adversary, and just him being a douche and whatever, and her going on bad dates. I don't know, just as someone selfishly, I just really enjoyed that. Maybe not as a superhero show, but just maybe as a show in general, I guess I can get at. But Bill, I've waited long enough to throw it to you here. Just give me your 2 cents on the show, what you thought of it, and just kind of playing off of everything Rick and I were just talking about.
I mean, overall, I really liked it. I feel kind of like how WandaVision was like sort of a throwback to the, like the classic sitcom. I feel like this sort of went there too, where, like they kind of addressed it in the finale and throughout the show, but there's like this Marvel formula and everything is there's like this series plot line that they cover it throughout the whole thing, where TV, I mean, at least I could think back 20 years, 30 years, like serialized stuff, it wasn't the the bread and butter, so to speak. But I liked how there was the episode with the magician, and then she was defending a client, and then I thought the last 2 episodes were amazing, just as far as really breaking the fourth wall, playing into the romantic comedy aspect. I really like the balance of Daredevil that we get here. I feel like if you're introducing the Daredevil Netflix characters into this universe, it struck a really good balance where, he's a likable guy, but then on that show, you also had like the really violent fights. Like, you remember the what was it? Everybody calls it the old boy fight, the hallway scene, where it's like the continuous shot. Like, I'd love to get something like that, but I don't know if we're going to. But I like kind of how they introduced Matt here. It almost feels like it's a little more grounded and balanced than Kingpin was in Hawkeye. So, I kind of appreciate how they brought him in. And then I'm totally fine with breaking the fourth wall or shattering it, how they did in the finale. I thought really just kind of spitting in the face of like all the criticism that the Marvel cinematic universe gets. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna do A, B, C, and D, and it's your color, painting by numbers and stuff. I liked it overall. I just feel like they had this idea of Jen finding herself and finding balance as Jen the lawyer and She-Hulk. They told that story, and then each week found a way to introduce new characters. You already mentioned bringing back Blonsky, giving him a legit way back into the MCU. It's good to kind of see that version, like that era of the Hulk, back in play, but then also Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. Because people say like, oh, he just doesn't have a solo movie. I don't know if he needs a solo movie. Like, I think it's so hard to maybe figure out something for him that just getting him in something like this was so successful that now people are saying, oh, there's World War Hulk coming and all this other stuff. And it was like, yeah, you didn't need a solo property to sort of put him in first. You have to find the right way. And they did that tenfold with this show. So I'm looking forward to, it sounds like season 2's ago. I liked it. And great supporting cast that I hope sticks around. Titania was great. Jen's friend. And then
Pug
Pug.
too, I thought was great. Yeah.
Pug. I'm blanking on his name. Is it
He was,
Josh?
yeah.
He was in Arrow.
I was
So
gonna say,
like
was he in Arrow? Someone did you interview him, Bill, or someone interviewed him like recently? Because he was at
Renee
SummerSlam.
Paquette.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was
Renee
Renee.
had-
Renee
Okay,
Paquette
yes.
just talked to him.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I guess I didn't know he was at
But,
SummerSlam. He was in fucking Arrow. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he was on Arrow. He was like the big bad of season 5.
Oh, that's crazy.
And I mean, he was great on that show. And then Arrow had its own problems season 6 and 7, but I mean, season 5 was an incredible show. He played this really great villain, and then coming on to here where he's just kind of like, I guess like a dim-witted lawyer is the right way to put it. But
I mean, he's just a sweetheart is what he is. He's like, if the whole overarching like theme of the story is men suck, he is the, the shining light of what to be, right? Like he's like the show's moral compass, basically.
You knew you were gonna like him when they had her first interact with them in that first or second episode, and he gave I think it was Jen specifically, maybe Nikki too, a map to the best bathroom to go poop in at the office, which I thought which was great. I'm like, I'm gonna like this guy after that. But no, he was great. I thought the entire supporting cast, I agree, guys, but it was very good. I thought Nikki was great too. I love that one episode. And they what I liked about the show going in and what I thought I was going to like about it, and I ended up liking about it, because I didn't really know what the show was going to be about, truthfully, going in based off the previews. And I honestly thought it would be one of my more least favorite shows of what we've seen so far, but I ended up loving it. But that one episode where is it Mr. Immortal? Because obviously I know it's a character based on the comics.
Yeah.
Mr. Immortal. I thought I personally I love that whole fucking thing where it's like, it raises real, like, true legal questions. Like, all right, he dies 7 times. I guess he's technically dead. Like, does he owe anyone money and shit? Like, I thought that whole thing, it had absolutely nothing to do with the show itself. I thought that whole thing was entertaining. The Jake the Goat thing with Wong, we mentioned Wong earlier. That whole episode was fucking entertaining too. It was very random. If it's not your cup of tea, you probably thought it was dumb. But what was your guys' take on that sort of stuff? Because I was thoroughly entertained by it personally.
I think that was one of my favorite episodes. That was Mr. Immortal was the wedding episode, and they even said like, oh, here's this just standalone episode that has nothing to do with the plot, even though it kind of did. But it was just sort of like it kind of stuck its nose up at shows that, and I'm thinking of Walking Dead right now because they do it all the time, where there's like a cliffhanger ending, and then the next week they're like, oh, here's this random person that you haven't seen in 5 weeks. We're going to follow them, and they're living by themselves on a farm, and they're doing like nothing to do with the plot, and it's like rage inducing. So they introduce this here, but it's like easygoing, like fun. It's it's a wedding. She's still figuring out what to do with dating people, and then she meets I can't remember the guy's name, but like, was
it Ben? Maybe
she meets the guy at the wedding.
Oh, Josh.
Is it Josh?
I think it's Josh. I don't know how I remember his name.
Yeah.
I'm usually terrible at this stuff. I was very enthralled by this show.
Yeah. No, but like she meets him there, and it like seems like a just like a throwaway meet, but then obviously we find out like 2 weeks later that it wasn't, and it drove the plot. So you still have those elements, but then Mr. Immortal was really funny, and I'm trying to think of I keep going back to that one and The Magician, because they really didn't move the plot as much as the rest of the season, but like those really stood out as just being kind of like those wacky like 90s sitcom episodes where it's like it kind of reminded me of like an episode of Friends where they're like arguing over who's going to get dressed first.
Yeah.
Like that was a good one. So
I agree. Just that sort of stuff. I just like that aspect of the stuff a lot, because of the show a lot, because we don't really see that a whole lot in the MCU. I know the MCU's played up a lot for comedy. It's one of the biggest knocks against it. I get it. I'm very, easily satisfied with this sort of stuff. Like that episode and the next episode that followed, where they were at Blonsky's farm or whatever, and they had like the whole sit down group chat thing. That I thought I had to watch that twice. That I thought was very entertaining. Josh came away as the bigger asshole on this show to me than Todd did. I mean, Todd was a douche, cool, but I mean, Josh was the one that won her over. He looked like he was a good guy, and then he wasn't a good guy. And then obviously they made up for it with the whole Daredevil thing. I don't know, the whole love romance thing. And like you said earlier, Bill, as far as this just kind of being this comedy romance show, like I said, I think it really depends and varies on your like and taste, because I really like this stuff, and I think it meshes well with this show and with Jen specifically. I thought the main actress, who's Tatiana Maslany, I thought did a fantastic job as well. So I guess it kind of depends on your taste, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I like the MCU formula to an extent. Like, there are some of the movies I still haven't seen. Like, I haven't seen Eternals. I haven't seen some of the shows. And fair enough. It's, it's like
It's a lot,
the exception to the rule, but I like this stuff. I like sitcoms. Like, this felt like it was right up my alley, and it was comedy heavy, but it was like the right kind of comedy. It wasn't an MCU movie where it's like, okay, action, and then they pause to like say this stupid joke, and then action, and it's like, just, like, some of them you want it to be an action movie. Like Black Widow I really liked to an extent, because it was like they had to find a way to like work in like, oh, they're Russian, so they're, like, oh, dim-witted, like fish out of water, like, now we're in America, and just some of that stuff didn't work. But I feel like here it was appropriate. I feel like Blonsky, like, he's the Abomination. He was this like ruthless guy in the movie. Even if you don't know him, he just, something about the Zen guy made sense. It worked.
I absolutely loved Blonsky's arc in
Me
this.
too.
I was curious as to, what has this guy been doing for the last 16 years, right? We haven't seen him since he had his elbow ripped out and beaten over the head with it. Like, we haven't seen this guy. So, and then we see he shows up in Shang-Chi, and clearly he looks different. Obviously there's been some kind of, tweaking with whatever the hell serum is circling around in his body to get him back to some semblance of normalcy. But I love this, whole switch over to Namaste, kind of find Jesus and inner peace kind of thing. And I loved him being her first big client and winning her over with common sense, right? Like, he goes in there and tells his side of the story. Like, look, I didn't sign up for any of this. I was pulled out by your government, told to go after this dangerous threat and this asset that you guys wanted back. And then I get my butt whooped, and I'm the one who ends up in prison. And now all of a sudden, this dude that you told me to go after is a fucking hero. So I loved that he took that, and that he didn't turn out to be a bad guy. Like, this dude, like, literally just sat in prison, and, when he could have left at any point in time. And he's just like this really big, cuddly teddy bear who's trying to help people now. I absolutely loved that, because if you think back to that 2008 Hulk movie, he really wasn't a bad guy. He was just a good soldier who was doing his job. So I love the fact that they have turned him back into a good guy now, and we'll probably see him in the Thunderbolts, I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, they definitely redeemed his character. Again, that was one person that I know they announced him ahead of time for the show, and I wasn't really sure what to expect, but he ended up being fantastic. And I love the whole fact that I was worried during the finale, that when they showed him at the talk with Todd, I'm thinking, oh shit, like, did he just secretly not like, Jen this entire time? But I guess he just obviously didn't know what he was actually talking at. He just said he just needed the money or wanted the money or whatever.
Yeah. He just took a gig. That's all it was.
Yeah.
It was just,
yeah.
It was bad. It was bad, lazy writing, which is what Jen smashed through the TV to fix, right?
Yeah,
so, I mean,
exactly.
it's like, oh, hey, all of a sudden, here's this convergence of every character very conveniently. And it's like, what the hell is going on? No, we're breaking this shit.
And they spared us from that with that, with our big battle really was not between Abomination and Hulk, which we got like a second of before she broke the fourth wall and completely shattered it, like you guys said. The real battle was between her and Kevin. I thought that whole thing was very entertaining because, like you said earlier, Bill, it's kind of taking stuff that, like, criticisms that fans actually have of the MCU. And like, we all have this, like, you know, people kind of joke, oh, Kevin Feige's like a robot pumping out all these shows and movies, same formula. He's basically just like a robot in that respect. And they went off of that. They threw in the, you know, Wolverine line, or the X-Men line rather, like, oh, when are we getting X-Men and X, Y, and Z? I thought that whole thing was very well done. Yeah, it was just really
her
entertaining.
look at the camera on that one too.
What'd you say?
That little look at the I love that look that she gave the camera when she said, when are we getting the X-Men? And then she looked over like, yeah, I asked him.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was great.
That and the and you know, like the wink and the nod to like banging Daredevil. Like those those two beats were just perfect. Like, you got the X-Men thing because we've all been talking about it, and what was the show? Miss Marvel. They played, you know, just the little bit of the 90s cartoon theme song.
Yes, it was Miss Marvel. Yep.
So you got that. And I'll say I enjoyed that show as a whole, but like, if you were watching for some development, like bigger picture, like I don't think it was as rewarding as just this self-contained story about Kamala finding herself and like discovering her powers. But like She-Hulk, kind of the same thing. Like, she's discovering herself, finding balance with her powers, but like, this was literally just like, oh yeah, guess what? We're throwing it, you know, we're throwing it out the window. Like, we're gonna ask, like, when are the X-Men coming? Like, yeah, we're talking about it, instead of being subtle like the theme song. And then she's like, oh yeah, and Daredevil, like, just calling back to the last episode, and it was like, oh, like, that walk of shame was amazing. And then they doubled down on it and got just as good of a soundbite or like a meme out of it.
Yeah, that whole thing.
I loved at the end when he just dropped out of the sky too. Like, okay, fine, here, like, somebody literally just drew him into the frame, like, and hey, here's Daredevil dropping out of absolutely fucking nowhere. Hey, there you go. That made me laugh.
Yeah, no, that was funny. The usage of Daredevil on the show is perfect as well. The only thing I would say they probably should have done differently was, I know they showed the footage of their first interaction at D23 like a month ago. Not that it got leaked, but people kind of knew he was going to be in the show, which we already kind of suspected. That, and also, not even whether you knew about that or not, they had his fucking mask in episode 4 or 5 or whatever, and then he didn't come in until episode 8. So like, you're thinking, oh, this is the episode where he comes in. Oh, this is the episode where he comes in. Not that I didn't like that, but I wish they had done. I mean, I wasn't disappointed. I don't really mind personally, but I could see the criticism. Like, you know, it kind of, I could see people saying, oh, that was a good episode, but I kind of wish it had Daredevil like I thought it would, because they kind of had several episodes where he wasn't in after teasing him, and then he finally, you know, came in. So I wish they had done that a little bit better.
What wasn't the next episode after the Daredevil tease, the wedding episode?
I think so.
With the mask.
So.
Yeah,
because
the next one was
the
episode.
She was getting her suits and the dress, and then they showed the mask, and then I think she went to pick them up. Like, she went to pick up the dresses, and then they still teased her purple outfit.
Yeah.
So I think
that's what it was. And then also, I think the episode after that one was when she was on Emil's, you know, compound or whatever, and he wasn't in that either. But no, the whole walk of shame thing I thought was great. That was a really funny nod. Again, just kind of merging, you know, MCU elements with actual elements from other TV shows. I thought was great. I thought it was funny when she hinted at to Kevin, the robot. She's like, yeah, no, this is something that the MCU is kind of light on, just referring to the fact that they slept with each other on this show, which, again, we really don't see in the MCU at all. We're 25 movies in. They're all family friendly. We're not seeing any like hardcore sex or anything like that. But I think the closest probably would have been in Eternals. They had like one scene where it was implied. But other than that, they don't really talk about it. They don't really show anything, which is fine. But I thought what they did with her, just going on dates and stuff, including with one David Otunga, which was really fucking funny. I forgot that he was in the show. So had that wrestling time.
Well, and not only that, And not only that, but that's just kind of like that's kind of like a big part of Jen's life is not only her personal life, but having an interest in other people's personal life. Because you remember back to the post-credit scenes when she's drinking with Hulk, trying to get him to talk about whether or not Captain America died a virgin or not. Like that
Fantastic,
was absolutely hilarious. And by the way, that's a question that I guarantee most of the MCU had until he disappeared, obviously, and lived an entire life with I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, Peggy, thank you.
Yeah.
I was about to say, whatever her superhero name is. Now I'm blanking on that too.
No, not Sharon Carter, right? No, that's the
Captain Carter. Yeah.
Captain Carter.
I was going to call her Captain Carter, but I'm like, well, she wouldn't have been Captain Carter there.
Yeah,
but you get my point.
yeah. At that point, yeah. No, that was great. I like the consistency too. When you see her phone after that, Jen, that is, she has a picture of literally Captain America's ass as her wallpaper on her phone, which I thought was great. No, with the post-credit scene of that first episode with her just before she can finish saying "fucks," I thought was fantastic. So, no, I really liked the show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I thought they did a good job with it. And if they do greenlight it for season 2, which it seems like they're going in that direction, they haven't officially said anything, then consider me on board. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it then. But no, this was great, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad I can get your insight on She-Hulk here today. Rick, you're on the Twitter machine at what is your Twitter handle, Rick? I always forget. Isn't it just Rick Ucchino?
It's my name. It's Rick Ucchino, RICKUCCHINO. Easy to remember, difficult to spell. So you can find me there and get the link to everything that I'm doing, whether it's for Believe or SiriusXM or SB Nation or any of the 19 other outlets that I work for. So the one-stop shop would be my Twitter page. So yeah, give me a follow there.
Fantastic. Bill, I assume the same with you. You're on the Twitter machine, Bill B. Pritchard with it's BRITCHARD and then 152 at the end there. Obviously, WrestleZone.com. People can find all your stuff there. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Anything else you want to plug as we wind down here?
No, that's it. Thank you for having me. This is always fun getting a chance to do this. Anybody wants to talk to me, Twitter, I'm on there all the time, and yeah, check out our stuff on WrestleZone. Always try to have some new interviews in the mix. I'll have one tomorrow with Taylor Wilde that's coming out. And then,
nice.
Yeah, just
check it out.
That's it.
Great stuff. Yeah, no, appreciate it, guys. What were you saying? What were we going to say, Rick?
Oh, nothing. No, you're good.
Rick chuckled.
I just chuckled.
At my long dramatic
Dramatic pause.
Yeah,
Antissa.
I look forward to the next one, guys. This was great. You're both killing it right now. And yeah, it's always nice, as Rick said earlier, always a great time to chat about something other than wrestling. So I look forward to the next one, and I'll catch you guys then. Take care.